Hi, everyone. Welcome to Chat with Pat. I'm Pat Sukhum, CEO of Big Brothers Big Sisters. Honestly, whenever this starts, I say Chat with Pat, which our marketing team so endearingly named. I think we're going to be entering into like some big talk show, right? But unfortunately, because of COVID and everything, we don't have this giant live studio audience here. We'll have to insert our own laugh track. But we're still going to jump in. And I'm so excited today to have with me a match, right? Sort of everything we do, all the work we do. This is Michael Canella and Doug Williams. They've been matched for 10 years. And frankly, they're wonderful, wonderful big and little brother. They are huge champions for our agency. They have been showcased nationally across our entire Big Brothers Big Sisters federation. And what I love about them, and you'll see, they are exceptional people. And I say this with respect, but their story isn't that out of the ordinary, isn't that exceptional in the sense of, they're just regular people that found each other through Big Brothers Big Sisters and have learned the power of mentoring, the power of creating a relationship and what that match can create. So without me rambling too long here, let's just jump right on into it. And maybe you could tell us a little bit, to get started, a little bit about each of you. And maybe Michael, you'd start and just tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah, so my name is Michael. And for me, I'm in ministry right now. Born and raised in Blaine, Minnesota. Grew up here all my life, and had some good times in my life, some bad times, and the bad times actually caused Doug to come into my life, because my parents split up when I was younger, and I didn't have that father figure. So that's when Doug came in, and yeah, so now I'm in college, and I'm doing a youth ministry internship, and I'm getting a degree in ministerial leadership at the Manual Leadership College. And yeah, so that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Excellent. Doug Williams, as you said, I'm the big of the pair here. Not anymore. Michael's probably taller than I am. But we've been in together for 10 years. I actually retired a year ago. Retired early. Yeah, exactly. But I'll get into the history of Michael and I. But since then, my wife and I have been spending a lot of time giving care to our parents and so on. But meanwhile, Michael and I keep in touch. It's interesting when I think about our relationship, when it started, when Michael was just a child, it was one way. Then as he got older, junior high, high school, now that he's graduated, our relationship has evolved in each one of those phases of his life. And it's just continued to grow. And I feel like we can go for weeks without talking to each other. And then we get on the phone and we just are off and running. We're just on the same page with what's going on within our lives. And I just think he's the greatest in the world. So it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's so interesting. And I've heard clearly lots of your stories, and I'm going to dig into plenty of them. But, it reminds me, so I'm a big, or at least I have a little, he's 32 now. But sounds so similar, right? You kind of get together and it's the start of a relationship. So you don't know each other, you're figuring it out. And clearly over time, it's about showing up, being there for each other. But then you build that trust, and it sounds like a level of love as well. And, love hearing, everything you've got to say about it, and feel like exactly the same way about my little and how we've grown together. And similar, like he used to be little and now he's bigger than me. And I even think about our growth. And, when we were always into sports, and when we got together, he was 9, right? So there was a window where I was surprisingly better than him, right? Because I literally was taller and stronger, and I was kind of letting him win stuff. And that lasted like 3 years. And then I could sense when he was letting me win, right? Or I felt like early on I was giving him a lot of advice, and clearly that started to flip too. And sort of it just became a more balanced relationship. And, I know both of you have talked about sharing advice and sharing stories and meeting over different events as well. And I'd be curious to hear some of your stories.
Certainly. Before we do that, can I talk about what brought me into the Big
Please.
Brothers?
Yeah.
Exactly. So we have to stay on script.
Yeah. Let me look down a little more.
No, that's all right. I'm just kidding.
No, great.
So, and I think back, and I was thinking about this today, ask that question is, what happened or what got me into Big Brothers Big Sisters, and what I guess convinced me to do it. And it really stems back to conversations that I used to have with my brother. And when he and I go fishing together, we have these in-depth conversations about society and what we could do to make a difference, and all of this. And we talked about, I've been involved in feeding my starving children, and I volunteer on a crisis line, for example, and we do these different things. But I thought, the kids, what can we do and where can we start and really make a difference? And I felt, and my brother agreed, is starting with the kids. And so a friend of mine had been a big in the past. And so that's really what got me involved, where I reached out and got to meet Michael and, started learning really what it meant to be a big in a relationship. Big Brothers, the organization themselves, really, really helped with the initial introductions, the matching process. They really went through and did an in-depth, inventory of what my interests are, made sure they matched up with Michael. They attended the first meeting that we had and so on. And so that ability to, reach out to Big Brothers, have you guys do the match and get us connected together really, really worked and gelled with, what I was looking to do. And so I feel when I look at Michael now, I'm so proud of him. I really feel like I've made a difference. And it's really been a good situation for us. So anyway.
And Michael, what did you think when you heard you were going to get a big?
Yeah, I don't want to say I was like 5 or something, but I would say I was like 8 or something. And I don't know, it was really weird because for me, I still am to this day a homebody, and I stay home a lot. But at that time, I didn't go outside at all. I wasn't really having the best time at school either. I had a lot of like bullying and stuff going on. And for me, I never had like a friend, so to say, at that age. And for me, I was like, what? Like, we're going to go out and go get coffee. We're going to go play games and stuff. Like, okay, that's something that I never do. Like for me, I just would stay home, watch TV, watch wrestling, pretend like I would throw around this chair in my living room. My mom would hate when it.
Yeah, I can imagine why.
Yeah, it was really loud. It was like a plastic big 20-pound thing. But yeah, so but yeah, that all happened. And Doug comes in, in this leather jacket. And there's this other guy too. I don't know what his name was, but he was huge. And I was pretty small. I was like about yay big. And I don't know. I think I was really just behind my mom the whole time when they were talking. And I was really nervous because like I had my dad, and I would see him every weekend. I still do to this day. And but I never had like a guy. I grew up with 2 girls and my mom. So having a guy in the house was like, whoa, like what was going on? So for me, that happened. And our first time together was, I don't remember exactly what we did, but I just remember the car ride was very quiet. I didn't talk. I just, nodded my head and stuff a lot. But eventually it got better because I saw that he wasn't just some guy, in a program. Like he was actually like in it, and he wants to do something for the program, for the kids, and for, the world really, this is the next generation. And now we're starting to see the fruits of that. So
that's right. Yeah. We are.
I hope I stayed on your question.
No, absolutely. This can go anywhere. I mean, I love how you're talking about the progression, right? Going from the yeses and the nos and maybe some awkward silence early on, like how all good relationships start. But I remember even talking at one point, I heard somebody sort of dating advice. And I mean, it seems like everything was, nothing was off limits at some point, right? You got to a point where you clearly were mentor and mentee, but also, as you just said, like friends.
Yeah. Best buddies.
Yeah, and those, I mentioned the different phases, but when he was, in grade school, just a little boy,
Oh, yeah.
it was fun things. It was, exciting things, doing things and so on. But as he grew older, middle school or high school, pretty soon it was just going to the coffee shop and he'd have a hot chocolate and I'd have a cup of coffee and maybe we'd look at his homework or do something there. Or I taught him how to play chess. So we played chess a lot. That was one of our staple activities. But the point is that it was just, we were together, right? And I was involved in what his life was about, what was interesting, and how I could help him be successful for that next week, And I have to mention his mother, who was just a delight. Without her, this wouldn't have been a successful match, because she, in fact, for years, I communicated with her, not Michael, because he was just a little boy, but she really, really helped me, give him the right help and areas to focus on throughout his childhood. And now, like I said, we're really close and continue. I hope this relationship goes on forever.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
We love hearing that, right? And again, and I use this word often, the power of that relationship, right? I mean, there's probably information everyone wants to share with anyone, but when you have that underlying trust that you've built through, could be just hanging out, could be playing chess, and it takes time, right? And it takes commitment, right? Relationships are where you find inspiration, right? And the ability to sort of just amplify. And I love that you both have embraced that so well.
I want to tell a funny story, and then I'll ask you to think of one as well. But you reminded me, Pat, before we started this, where you talking about roller skating over at the Metrodome.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Remember years ago, Michael, you and I went roller skating? Oh, man. And I was, I played hockey, so I was pretty comfortable on the roller skates, but Michael was really struggling the whole time. And I quickly learned that it was time to end the roller skating and maybe go out for pizza or something.
Right.
But that's one of the funny memories I have of us doing things together.
No trips to the ER, anything?
No, nothing like that.
Yeah, for me, the moment that when we were talking about this today, I was like, oh man, I have one really just out there one. It was when I think Big Brothers was having an event where we were going canoeing or something like that. Yeah, and it was like 4 years ago or something. And I remember I was pretty excited I was like, I never went canoeing before. I always wanted to do that. I like doing traveling. So things where I can accomplish, okay, let me go to that side of the river, let me go over here, exploring, whatever. So I I remember going, and I was like, wow, that's a big boat. And there was a lot of people there. I think they were all matches and stuff. And was there two parties?
It was like a 6-man canoe.
Yeah.
So we were side by side. We launched down at Hidden Falls on the Mississippi River. And anyway, it was really, I remember that very well.
Yeah. And I just remember my arms being so tired after. I never really did exercise at that time. So we were doing this
the
whole time. And we didn't stop at all. And I really wanted to stop, but the moment someone stops, you notice that the boat starts to go away or something, So yeah, that has to be probably the most memorable story, I think. And I had really just exercised this whole area of my body. So
one of the benefits of Big Brothers Big Sisters is building upper body strength, clearly.
Yeah.
So let's make sure we add that to the website. It does speak, and clearly I'm going to plug all day long, but we love sort of the wide variety of programming we can offer, and that's a good example of trying something new. Sometimes it sticks.
Yeah.
Sometimes it doesn't.
That's good.
Yeah, I remember with my little, when he was 10, Big Brothers Big Sisters offered a swing dancing event. I'm not exactly sure why I thought that was going to resonate, but we tried it. But we only did that once as well, and it was sort of they matched us, so you would dance with random people, and at that point it was pretty binary. They did boys with girls and men with women, and I think it was pretty uncomfortable for him. And that was 20 years ago. So lots of change, but
Yeah.
trying to speak more to the wide variety of events. Went on a little bit of a tangent there.
Oh yeah, that's good.
Yeah, I would love to, and you guys have been actually better at staying on this than I am, so thank you. I appreciate that, but would love to really talk a little bit more, and you've already hit on it a little bit of like just how this program has impacted both of you and others around you.
Yeah, so it's really impacted me. I would say in many areas. Like for me, in my dad's house, I have a stepbrother. I have two stepbrothers and one stepsister. My stepsister is about 2. One of my stepbrothers is about 6, and the other one is about to be 15 this year. And I've been there since like 8, 7, no, probably like 6 years ago. And I got a lot of, I think there's this thing in psychology called like the biopsychosocial perspective. That's like the things that you get, I know it's a big word, but it's like biologically, psychologically, and socially, like I gained a lot of things from Doug. So the things that I saw that he would do when I was 8, 9, whatever, is like the same things that I do with them, and I take them out sometimes. Like a couple of weeks ago, we went out to the mall and gave them like $20 each, and then we went to an arcade and stuff. And one time we went to the movie. So these are like things that I would see, like, okay, when me and Doug would meet up, we would go to places. We would always go outside the house, because I know that, inside the house is where like all the just kind of weird things are happening, and I mean, there's family too, and it's not like, crazy bad things, but sometimes you might want to get away from your mom because she's not, So for me, I was like, okay, let me do that with them, and I know that I had to take them out of their situation. They aren't doing the best a lot of the time, and it's a little bit of not like the best situation that they're in. So taking them outside the house really gets them to like think about things, and like, okay, now that when they get older, I think that they're going to do the same thing. I'm already seeing that with Patrick. Patrick's the 15-year-old, and it's beautiful. It's like Doug to me to Patrick, and it just keeps going. So yeah, what was the question again?
That was the answer to whatever the question was.
Yeah.
That was the answer. I mean, that is such a, and what our hope and everyone's hope is, right? Sort of that pay it forward mentality. And I love how quickly it's happening here, right? Sometimes you're just learning and you're not knowing you're learning, and you're applying what you learn. And I just think that's beautiful to see again, how quickly you're able to, and I know it's flowing both ways, but sort of have that pass through. Yeah. Brilliant. Yeah.
So for me, our relationship it's extremely rewarding. I think in one of our conversations in the past, I talked about how our society we're always creating groups, right? We've got, different political groups, different social economical groups. We've got different groups for religion, all these different groups. And I feel like this is an opportunity to break down the barriers between groups, right? Get people like Michael and I together, get us matched together, and let us see what's going on in the other group, following that analogy, right? So I feel like it's been really, really rewarding to get to meet Michael, get to know him, his mother. It's just, like I said, it's about the most rewarding experience I've had in my life, other than raising my own son.
Yeah.
I feel like it's really opposing what society is trying to do with us and separate us and group us, with people that think like us, that look like us, and that's what I like about this.
Oh yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. Like when we were talking earlier, like about the whole, like, if Big Brothers wasn't a thing, this match wouldn't probably happen. This match wouldn't probably happen. And me, being from a Hispanic background, and you being from a Caucasian. Is that what it's called? I just want to be politically correct. Okay. But yeah, like those types of things. Like, I mean, thinking about when I was younger, like I never really saw, Caucasian people when I was younger. I mean, I can't really even think of one except maybe like my mom's friend at work or something, but he was, those people were never around and stuff. So it's like not just learning things like, but like the culture, like I never really, just being with my mom. Yeah, my mom, I love her to death. I would do anything for her. But it's like there's something about a man being in that situation too. And it's not like Doug lived with us, but it's like that I had someone to talk to, once a week or whatever, that had a different viewpoint compared to whatever I was going through or whatever's happening in my house or at school. And that was probably one of the most beneficial parts because it was like a world outside of my world combining,
Yeah.
and it's, so.
That's cool.
Yeah, that's very cool. Derek and I have a conversation that's a similar sentiment. I actually bring it up to him all the time. I think he's sick of me. Like everything doesn't have to be symbolic, Pat. But yeah, absolutely. I think about all the relationships in my life. Like the vast majority are kind of happenstance. Like I was born into my family, right? And then I met my friends through work or school or activities. Here's an intentional decision that each of you made to enter into a relationship. And with Derek and I, we would never have been brought together to the point you both made without Big Brothers Big Sisters. And that there's something very magical to your point that is bringing two worlds together. And the perspectives I've learned from Derek, I would never have learned anywhere else. And hopefully it's the both ways, to kind of reiterate what you both have said. I absolutely believe Derek is on a better path because of me, but I know I'm a better person because of Derek. And I mean, it just, again, without sort of the conscious decision by both parties to commit to that, it just doesn't happen.
That, along with what Michael said, I'll call it pay it forward, but how he's already working with his stepbrothers. I mean, that's cool.
Yeah.
I mean, this whole concept is it grows. So if we can get more people to do this, that'd be a good thing.
Yeah, and to what you've already insinuated, and that directly hits an insinuation is it kind of permeates into your families and into your community, right? It's such a powerful relationship, and there's so much learning and so much to be learned from it. Yeah, it's great. Well, as seasoned veterans now, you've got this match thing totally figured out. You're crushing it every time you get together. What advice do you have for other bigs? Would you have done anything differently looking back? Anything like that?
So for me,
Bigs and littles. Sorry.
he said big. So
Yeah, you please.
Advice is it's extremely rewarding. I covered that already, right? But it's not. It's a commitment of time. That's it, right? It's a commitment of time. It doesn't have these. We don't have to have these lavish, get-togethers and so on. I mentioned, most of our meetings were just centered around Michael's life, what he was doing, how I could integrate into that and help him, right? So that there's not a lot of upfront work or preparation that needs to be done by the big. It's literally just getting involved in a young person's life and sharing it with them and helping them with whatever point they are in their life. And so my suggestion to other bigs or potential bigs is, don't overthink it, right? Go into it, open up your heart, listen to what their interests are, where are they in their life, and just try and support them and help them through life, because life is not easy. We all know that.
Yeah, that's great advice.
Yeah. And life is a lot better when you have things to look forward to. So things like, I remember we would always end up meeting like on Wednesdays or something. And when it got to a point where I wasn't so nervous to talk to Doug or anything, and I was very comfortable with him, I'd be like, man, I can't wait till Wednesday because I get to get out of here and I get to like do things that I never do. Like, I didn't know what chess was until I met Doug. I was like, chess, what? And then now it's like, I have a chessboard in my house, so things like that. And I don't know, it's just, like if I was to think about what do I wish I wouldn't have known before I met Doug. I mean, I was pretty young, so I'm like, I don't know. But if I was to talk to someone who was my age, who had a big brother right from, 8 years old or something, like I would just say, just keep going, because at first it seems really scary. And I mean, my mom would always talk to me like when I came back with Doug, and he would drop me, I'd be like, "Are you okay? Is everything okay?" My mom was super protective, so my mom was pretty like, "Are you okay? Is everything okay? Did everything go good with Doug tonight and everything?" So, I mean, even to parents, really, it's like this is a beautiful thing, and you guys do an excellent job on making sure that the people who are the bigs aren't just crazy people looking to be with kids. So it's a really beautiful thing, and you guys do an excellent job at choosing, and it takes time to go through the whole process, and it's not just like a one day thing, like, okay, you want to be with this person, okay, so yeah.
One other thing, if I could, that
Yeah,
I wanted
please.
to mention is, when I think about when we were first getting together, and Michael, he one-word responses, he mentioned that already, but not making eye contact with me, and so on. And I can remember sitting with him, and I'd say, Michael, do you trust me? Do you enjoy this? Yes. Can you look at me and tell me that, and I remember back at that point versus where he is now, and that's extremely rewarding.
Yeah.
To see him grow and see him evolve. And I mean, his interpersonal skills are incredible now. But that's extremely rewarding. The other thing is my big brothers, big sisters advisor would call periodically and
Sure.
How's it going with Michael? And I'd always say, my first response was, you tell me, what's Michael's mom saying? Because I wanted feedback from there, right? To give me some directive on, if I need to be. They just love it. Michael's having a great time. So, I mean, that was just music to my ears each time. But just to see the growth, see Michael getting more mature, growing up as a young man, that's extremely rewarding.
Yeah.
Oh, it's wonderful. You both hit on so many things that I mostly will just repeat because you've said, but I mean, Doug, to what you said around advice or even the invitation to become a big, we hear that so often, right? I mean, and again, I get it. Like when you think about it, it feels like this, like, should I do it? It's a big commitment. And I think, I say a couple things. I say, sometimes the best things in life are the things that feel the hardest, right? Or have a challenge in front of them. And also a volunteer opportunity with Big Brothers, Big Sisters is very different than a lot of what you see out there. And don't get me wrong, there are so many wonderful opportunities and everyone should volunteer for the cause that suits them best. But when you really think about this one, it is something that it takes a little more time, it's going to build. But to what you both spoke to, the reward there, like both personally within your communities, right, within the relationship, I think are immense and sort of, you might have to invest a little more, right? But that's going to ultimately sort of have a larger payoff and both ways, right? I love how you both spoke to the reward that you both feel, right? When I became, or was just when I became a big, I remember I had this mentality of like, I'm gonna change the world one Derek at a time, right? I was 24. I'm gonna give and give and give, and the world will be better because of it. And clearly, as you're a wonderful example and a little bit more mature about this all than when I started, it's just this beneficial relationship to both of you, right? And again, there's a mentor-mentee dynamic, but there's so much learning that's going both ways, known or unknown. I remember another agency that we were talking to, another one here in Minnesota, down in southern Minnesota. They did sort of an informal study and asked some of their bigs about their role as a big, and they said, if I knew what I knew now, I would have done it sooner.
Yeah.
Right. Everyone can kind of delay. Everyone can kind of find some overthinking, right?
Yeah.
It's easy to overthink, but a lot of times we're looking at, take that first step. And I think you're going to see it just the rewards build.
Yeah. I was going to say that, and we've each said it in different ways, but one unique thing about Big Brothers, Big Sisters is you're helping a child right? Helping a child grow up in the world that we live in right now versus helping someone that's homeless or helping someone that's hungry, right? Someone that's already grown. And so you're actually helping that individual who's going to become a great leader and help others when they mature and become the next. You're gonna run the country here soon. But I mean, starting with the child, I think there's something really profound about that versus helping someone that that's having trouble. I think there's a big difference between those two.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I look forward to working for Michael someday.
Absolutely.
Well, and clearly you keep jumping in with stuff. We're going to take some questions pretty soon here. But I also, to kind of feed off of that, and thank you for the opportunity. I do want to reach out to everyone and offer that opportunity to volunteer with Big Brothers Big Sisters, right? We are always looking for more mentors. Right now we have a waiting list of a little less than around 200 littles that are waiting for a big, right? That want to engage in something like this, have an additional caring adult in their life. And really anyone can be a big, right? We look at all ages, all backgrounds, all life experiences. And I always say this, I guess I'm talking to Doug, and it sounds like you've already been a mentor within your home. Like anyone can be a big, but it turns out like the really wonderful, special people actually choose to do it, right? And then, as you said, once you get into it, it's this rewarding relationship you've created, right? You're beyond your, I got to go volunteer this week. It's something much different and much deeper than that. And so we absolutely, if you're interested in becoming a big with Big Brothers Big Sisters, go to bigstwincities.org. There's going to be a big button to volunteer, and we have numerous different sort of mentoring models and ways you can join us. So take a look at that. And as I said, just take that next step. If you have any inkling, if you've ever thought about it, click on the button, take that next step and come to an information session. Learn a little bit more, ask some questions, learn a few stories. We also are if you have individuals in your life, young people age 8 to 13 that are littles looking for bigs, there are ways to enroll them on our site as well, right? So we want to make sure that we are every young person who wants a mentor can find a mentor, right? Can have those additional caring adults. And then of course, as the CEO of Big Brothers Big Sisters, I also have to say, we're always taking dollars, right? So, you'd be amazed how far we can stretch a dollar. So on that same site, bigstwincities.org, there's also a big donate button. So if you find you want to help us financially, and I'm looking at the both of you, but I'm talking to the world, please consider a financial contribution. Again, we want to help every child in the Twin Cities who's looking for a mentor find one. Wonderful. I might take a look at the people behind the camera here that are all looking back at us. Thank you. And ask what questions we might have out there.
Yeah, we've got a question from Kristen. What similarities did Doug and Michael find in each other that helped them build and grow their relationship so well?
You want me to take that?
Yeah.
We have to think about that one. Well, so similarities, I think Michael and I, first of all, share a similar sense of humor. We, kid around with each other. We both, and I think that's really good. We both, as it turns out, share an interest in thinking, whether it's working on homework together. I think we both enjoy analyzing and thinking about things and so on. I think chess is an example of that. So reading, thinking, learning, those kinds of things were similarities that we had right out of the gate. Of course, it was hard to tell when he was just a little guy about those things, but that's probably something that comes to mind to me. Michael, how about you?
Yeah, I would say to open up more on the thinking part, it's like how we were talking about earlier. When I was younger, we would just go out and play and do things like that. But as I grew, it became more talking, a lot more talking, and more from like my side, because I really needed to talk about certain. I mean, you go into middle school, you go into high school, and there's this whole new world of different things, and it's like you kind of need someone to just verbally vomit on, you know, in a way. And when I would talk to Doug, like, you know, we'd be playing chess and stuff, or we'd be, you know, drinking hot cocoa. And yeah, like the whole thinking part is like, I think even now when I think about it, it's like, I like to think very critically about things. And I think one of the reasons is because we would have those super, you know, long and like analytic conversations about like, okay, why is this happening at school? Let's break it down. Like, okay, how are your friends? How are your stuff? Yeah, you know, and like even with therapy and stuff, the reason I got into therapy when I was in high school, because I was having a pretty rough time. And Doug probably remembers very, very well that we would talk, and at that point, it felt like there was kind of like a wall built because there were certain things that I was too scared to talk about, and they were like pretty high up there. And with that, it's like the reason I got into therapy, I think, is because of my conversations with Doug, and that I would start to break down, you know, like emotional intelligence and like being self-aware about myself and what my output to the world is like, what is it doing to myself? You know, what is it doing to me? And I think, yeah, like, I don't know if that's like maybe a normal thing, like with big brothers. It's like, you have to, when you invest your life into a kid or vice versa, it's like a lot of things change mentally because these are two people who never knew each other, who now know each other. And like now it's been almost 10 years and it's like so much has changed, but in a way it's like our conversation is like almost like the same, but in a good way. Like it's not like boring or anything, but it's like, okay, how was your family? How's this and that? And it's a blessing, I would say, because there's not a lot of people in this world who like to have hour-long conversations about how's your mom, how's your dad, you know, and sadly, you know, but it's a blessing to have that type of thing, you know.
That is so well said. I mean, I just love everything you've said there, you know, sort of the safety created, and ultimately it's almost like you're just a constant, right? It's considering you didn't know each other at all at one point, and now you've created this relationship where you know, and you've talked about some ups and downs, and how Doug was kind of a constant to it. I'm sure you had your ups and downs as well. Oh, that's brilliant. And it actually even reminds me of things. I appreciate the question coming in. I mean, both of you, and now the question takers or question askers are so good at reminding me of points I'm supposed to make. But, you know, a lot of the work, and again, clearly, I adore the staff here. They go above and beyond, and they're really like so specialized in creating relationships, right? So you mentioned sort of the process to get matched, and even up front, right? They're using their background, their experience, all the tools we have to make sure we are putting everyone in the best possible position to create a meaningful relationship. And a lot of that work, and you talked about the ongoing phone calls, is to get that set from the start. Now, there's a lot of work that goes into it. Both of you have put that work in, and your communities and the world is a better place because of it. But yeah, a lot of that work up front, clearly around making sure we create safety and safe relationships, but also making sure that our matches can have their best feet forward.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Do we have other questions?
We do, and sorry, I didn't introduce myself, so I don't want to sound like the Wizard of Oz behind the screen. I'm Lori Dossett, Director of Marketing and Communications here at BBBS. So I'm the one reading the questions from behind here. So keep them coming, please. We still have some time. Doug, somebody asked, you know, you guys were talking about how you taught Michael how to play chess. And somebody was wondering if you learned anything from Michael.
In chess?
No, just chess.
Because I learned a great deal from Michael and Jeff. Yeah, just life experience.
Just life.
Yeah, absolutely. I learned, you know, again, spending time with Michael, someone that comes from a different culture and so on. I learned a great deal about what's important to his culture, his family, those kinds of things, and you know, that in itself is really a lot. but also just learning about, again, giving and what it's like to be giving to someone, how rewarding that is. Those things never change, right? And I'm getting that feeling and that emotion right now about that. But so yeah, just learning about Michael and his culture, and and the problems he has as a child, right? They're all different. I wasn't able to often draw parallels to my own son when I raised him, right? But because Michael's were unique and different, they were unique to him. And so that was, I guess, my best answer for that.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
We have time for a couple more questions. Doug, you talked a little bit about how Michael's mom contributed to making the relationship between the two of you such a success. Can you talk a little bit more about that and what role she played?
Certainly, and I hope she's watching.
Probably.
She probably is, yeah. No, she is a wonderful lady. And from the first time we met in her living room, Michael talked about he was literally sitting on her knee or sitting next to her, and kind of facilitating the conversation with the Big Brothers Big Sisters placement person and myself. But she's been an advocate of our relationship, from the beginning. I mentioned early on, I always communicated with her, via text messaging and so on. I'm going to be picking up Michael next Tuesday, and then I'm be there in 10 minutes. Because obviously it wouldn't be appropriate for me to be communicating with Mike, or at least I didn't think it was when he was a child. But she was always an advocate, always supporting us. A quick example of that is one of the phases we went through in our partnership here is rockets. We used to build rockets, right?
I love that.
Yeah, and we'd buy the kit.
Yeah.
So we'd have to build it and paint it and name it and do all this preliminary work before we could go launch it. And his mother would set us up out in their garage, and she had a card table out there and stuff. And so we'd be working on our rockets out there, and serving cold water or whatever if we were thirsty and stuff. And that's just one example. But yeah, she's just been a huge advocate to this whole process, and she's a wonderful lady.
Well, and so we just have to let you know that she just put a message in the chat, just to us, so not everybody's seeing it. We're going to read it out loud. She said, "This is an awesome match. I'm mom." Big Brothers Big Sisters with heart emojis. So
Oh, that's nice.
she heard your words.
That is fantastic. And I was going to ask you, maybe that already answers it though, Michael, just sort of, and it would give Doug feedback, because this is how he gets it, what your family and your world has thought about having another person come in and then clearly be so ingrained at this point.
Yeah. So, I mean, I can kind of start with my dad. There was one time where Doug would usually pick me up from my mom's house.
Okay.
So one time Doug actually came to my dad's house. And my boys were pretty small. Dominic was like 2, Patrick was maybe like 10, and Michaela wasn't even born yet. So it was in the middle of, loud Dominic and all these crazy things going on, the baby around. But Doug, being the person he is, came into that room, and we were in the living room talking with my dad, and they had a really, good conversation. And my dad still asks me to this day, like, oh, do you still talk to that guy? Like when you were younger? And I'm like, yeah. It's like, oh, so good for you. So with my mom, she has always looked out for the best in me. And like, there's so many examples I could give, and it's like Big Brothers is probably one of the biggest ones, because it takes a lot from a mom to want to like have someone go with their kid to places while they're not there. And from my mom's side, it's like she desperately wants the best for me all the time. She's like one of those people who will like buy clothes for me from Target while she's buying it from like Goodwill or something. And no offense to Goodwill, but like stuff like that. And she would usually like, I mean, she'll like go in depth for me sometimes. Like when I was younger too, like when I had to pay for field trips or stuff like that. And, you know, she had multiple jobs and stuff. And having Doug around again, you know, was getting out of that whole world because she was really busy. She had a lot of things going on. So with her, it's like I mean, the reason why me, you, and Doug are here talking is because of her. And it takes a lot out of a parent, but it's so worth it to put your kid into a program like this because there's things that kids don't want to learn from their parents. That it's like when you go to school, like one of your friends can tell you something that you're like, oh, I should start doing that. And it's like a good thing, or it can be a bad thing. But that your mom's been telling you since you were little, but you don't want to listen.
Yeah.
So with Doug, it's like that was kind of the whole output coming from my mom. It's like that, you know, it's a sacrifice, but it's a very good sacrifice. It's a very rewarding sacrifice. And it's a sacrifice that goes out not just between you and me, but now to my stepbrother, and, you know, and it keeps going. And yeah, so.
That is great. I love hearing all of that. And thank you, Mom. Absolutely. My goodness. It does, you know, it takes everyone, right? It's easy to think that it's just going to be a little and a big, right? And I think historically we might have even thought that way, but yeah, there are families involved. There's people supporting the relationship from our staff, right? It's like any good relationship, it goes well beyond just the two involved, and it impacts well beyond that as well. I love hearing all of this.
We've got one last question. Says it's clear that there's so much love between the two of you. How did you guys tackle the tough times?
You look over.
You
me.
want to-
Maybe you've got a story.
Well, I think, you know, honestly, the tough times, I'll qualify that by saying, I don't think there was ever a time where Michael and I were at conflict, where there were tough times between us, but there were certainly tough times in his life where I was being supportive and listening and so on. And so I just wanted to qualify that first is, you know, like anyone else, right? If someone you care about is having a hard time in life, you know, listening, helping them through their emotions, you know, just being there for them, I think is how I handled that. Yeah. And hopefully it helped out. But, you know, and there were times where I was having problems in my life as well. And while I didn't get into a lot of details with Michael, but Michael was there for me, and he could feel that, you know, maybe it wasn't a great evening and how are you doing, and asking about my feelings and that kind of stuff. But so I think we really counseled or supported each other through the challenges that we had within our life. But again, our relationship, I don't ever recall a conflict. Yeah. So hopefully that answers the question.
Yeah. For me, I have had a lot of like conflicts in my own life. I mean, now I'm in college, so I'm doing a lot better with like everything, and I've learned so much like from Doug, from my family, from my friends, and you know, therapy and stuff. And I mean, some examples, like I remember like 2 or 3 years ago, I think we were going golfing or something like that. Yeah. And I just remember we were golfing, and I kept having this thing in my mind, because it's like that moment that you want to have fun. You're doing something that's like really fun, but there's something in your mind that's like really dragging you, and you can't get to that finish line that has the word fun on it because you're back here and you can't get to it. So, yeah, for me, there was an episode in my life where I think I was like in 10th grade, where I was very, very depressed. And I didn't have the best system in my school because we had a huge school and the hallways and everything. I'm just having like flashbacks. Like there were so many kids in there that it was like, how am I supposed to talk to like anyone, you know? And, you know, this is where the blessing of Doug comes in. But there comes a point where it's like, if I go out too far, like you can only help me like so much, because there's people like to this day that have issues that sadly they don't get out of, and they take a route that's not the best for them. And luckily and gracefully, Doug was a person who could pierce through that, and it took time. And it was a thing that I had to work through a lot on my side, and he had to work through, and we would have discussions a lot. And that eventually, you know, I got out of it and everything, and we were pretty good. And I'm just thinking about it. It was pretty crazy, but yeah. And just, I mean, it's not like you have to be an expert. Like when say you have a little, or vice versa, I don't know, but like that they're not having the best time. Like you don't have to be you don't have to be licensed in psychology or anything to, you know, be, you know, a person to influence them in their life. Especially like, I mean, now it's 10 years. It's like if Doug tells me that I should do something, I really think about it. And even as a youngster, it's like, I mean, you're young, you know, you're a sponge, like things just like when someone tells you something, like you're like, okay, I should really do this. And yeah, you don't have to be an expert or anything. And really how I got out of it was just Doug talking to me and, you know, maybe asking me some questions that were like out there in terms of like my mentals and stuff. And like that I had some hard times answering them. But eventually it turned out for the better, because it's like, these aren't questions I would have thought about, you know, and these answers were hard to get out. But it's like now when someone else asks me, coming back to the whole loop thing, it's like now when someone else asks me, or when someone else has that situation going on, it's like, okay, now I know what I have to ask. And I'm not they're therapists or psychologists. Like I'm just gonna be straight up. I'm gonna be honest with them. I'm gonna tell them like, how are you feeling? No, really, how are you feeling? You know, and different things like that. So yeah, I keep rambling on, but I think that was the answer to the question.
Yeah. No, I love in all of that. I mean, clearly a ton of growth, but there's also something kind of in both of what you're saying. There's sort of a simplicity there.
Yeah.
You know, in like to the point you made long ago, you know, you're not overthinking it, but just sort of letting it naturally kind of flow as well. And then clearly, I think what I'm feeling, and I assume anyone who's even close to this, watching this, is the impact you've had on each other, even through that kind of simple approach, or when the moments were simple. I think it's incredible. And again, you've been together almost 10 years now. And of course, you know, I want to say to the world, like, frankly, every relationship, every big brothers, big sisters relationship doesn't last 10 years, but they're, you know, they still have their impact in different ways, right? I mean, it's when you sign up, you're not necessarily signing up for a 10-year thing. But I bet when both of you signed up, you weren't necessarily thinking you were signing up for a 10-year thing either. You know, and kind of, again, it became more than just a weekly volunteer gig for you, right? It was a relationship that formed there, and clearly something magical there. Yeah. And want to use that moment to, you know, thank all the moms out there, thank the families, thank all our incredible bigs and littles and their communities and families. And then as we wrap up, clearly want to thank the both of you. I'm kind of feeling it in here a little bit too. I know, Doug, you were rattling around a little, and appreciate your openness here, but thank you both so much for joining. I could probably we could all share stories all night, and I appreciate you sharing some of those with me and with everyone here today. And I'm not sure if you have any final words, but thank everyone for joining Chat with Pat as well.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.